Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first webinar of 2017 from Nebu. Today, we will be looking at the new product for Nebu, the Nebu Reporter, and going through some of the sort of setups of it, who it's targeted for, and giving you an overview of what you can expect within this dashboard generator. The webinar will take approximately 40 minutes, and we'll have, as always, a sort of Q&A session at the end of that. Obviously, it will be available on our YouTube channel along with all previous webinars, and we look forward to you joining us in those again. So first of all, what we're going to look at then is the sort of webinar, Nebu Reporter itself. What is Nebu Reporter? So Nebu Reporter is a real-time insight into your projects. It's giving you the data that you are collecting, you're looking at within your projects, your surveys that are being run in a more sort of dynamic fashion than you're used to. There's a direct connection between the reporter, Nebu Reporter, and your data collection tool, your surveys. So there's no sort of having to deal with all files and pulling them in and out of different areas to populate the dashboard. It's direct link there. And it can be sort of customized to make it look and feel exactly as your sort of clients' web pages might look, or you can set up your own sort of look and feel for it, so you have a consistent style across all your reporting. And we'll look in more detail about how we can customize those elements, how you can sort of add more dynamic elements in there to enhance the visualization of that data that's being presented. So who is Nebu Reporter aimed at? Well, what we sort of see the Nebu Reporter doing is giving a selected information on progress statistics to sort of clients, research execs in your organization in a sort of very modern look and feel, very customized approach. It's not intended to be a full statistics tool. It's not intended to replace a lot of the sort of the market alternative tools in there that do more of the sort of the weighting and the analysis and bits and pieces there. It's very much a dashboard aimed at giving you that real-time information on how your your surveys are progressing, and to be able to enable your client to sort of see specific elements and reporting elements in there. So it's kind of the sort of managed frames in a reduced and more advanced format. So we'll just take a quick look at a sort of an example survey here as well. So I'll just pull up a survey that's been put together. So as you can see, a very sort of stylized background on there as well. We've got loads of different elements in here on sort of giving me the numbers of completes within this particular project. I've got my core results, sort of a whole count here on different questions, showing me what's been skipped or empty there, and different quota cells in both bar charts and a table format there, and obviously some different information on how my interview is progressing, the average lengths and things like that. So as you can see, it's taking a lot of the elements you expect to see in the managed frames, but there's a different styling to it. It's very much more presentable to end clients or research execs that are monitoring your field progress. So what we'd sort of now like to really look at is how we put these all together, how this sort of slideshow comes up, and the look and feel that we're demonstrating there, and it's quite easy to do. There are sort of four main steps to putting live a reporting dashboard. The first step we'll be looking at is obviously to add a dashboard. And when you're within the sort of the management console, you just simply click the button, add dashboard, and you're presented with then the options to fill in. You can do this quickly by importing a configuration file. The Nebu Reporter enables you to save any dashboard you've created as a configuration file and load that back in. And that will include all the elements in there, the widgets you've chosen to embed in your dashboard, the styling, any of the sort of images, videos, external HTML that you may have can all be loaded in, and it will actually load with the previous data set as well, which then obviously means that if you want to change that data set because you're reporting on a different survey, you simply have to select the data set you wish to display. And again, it's just a simple configuration using the drop down to select the source of that information, that data set. And that's pulling in the data, sort of reports, the surveys you have within your managed frames environment. And again, those that are sort of only available to you, your sort of user login. So it recognizes your user login for the managed frames area to provide you access to those surveys that you should have access to. Obviously, we have to bear in mind that you may have created some of the widgets there, and if there's one that's showing catty productivity and you select a web job, then that widget is going to be empty. So you may have to do some additional customization on there. But essentially, if you have a template of the type of report, the information you're going to be giving out, you can just go through these steps, adding the dashboard, importing your configuration, selecting your data source, and then you're ready to just simply share it. And within the sort of the dashboard elements there, you can see there's the sharing information. It creates a link directly from the name that you give to that report. Again, that's customizable, or it gives it a sort of a random number, so you can have a randomized link always generated. If you don't want to give it a report and you just want a sort of, an unknown link to be sent out there. We also sort of embed within there the creation of a QR code, so you can use that to sort of link up and launch your reports from there. So what we're going to now quickly look at is how we actually sort of run through those 4 steps in real time. So I'm just going to sort of log into my dashboard here. Logged in, we'll see that we've got a list of all the dashboards. We're looking at testing on there as well. We've got some of the sort of different sources, different elements in there as well. And what I can simply do is sort of click on my dashboard, as we said there. I can import my configuration. So if I just select a file, it obviously go to my desktop area. I can pick up one of these sort of reporting files on there as well, specific reporting file. Open this one up, importing all of the configuration there. And as you'll see, it's created a sort of report there. It's taken the initial name that I've put there and then put a sort of date timestamp on it by default. So we've got that element included in there. So you'll always have a unique name. Now I can sort of look at obviously changing, customizing the elements here. So again, I can look at the actual data source and using the drop down from here, I can then sort of run through several different data sources, perhaps choosing a different project on there as well, loading that in, and it'll sort of go through and change the data, the information, update what's available in here and run through those different widgets on there. So it will sort of update certain ones. Obviously, other ones, depending on the type of project I've chosen, won't be updated in there. Now, that's just sort of there. And if I look on the sort of actual area here, we've got the links ready for me to share. If I wanted to sort of rename this one in the title, you'll see that the link is automatically updated. So you can put in a specific title there. It checks what the title is unique, checks that it's sort of got at least 8 characters in there, so that we have that sort of internal reference ready. And you're good to go. You've got a dashboard there that can be shared straight away. Now I'm going to come back to sort of looking at more of the customizations on the dashboard shortly, and how we look at those. But what we'll do now is just sort of quickly flick back into the sort of presentation, go over some of the elements that we've got within our slideshow, so that we can then get a better feel for how we're sort of progressing on there, and what type of customizations you can do. So we're going to look at the sort of the widgets there. Now, obviously, widgets are the different elements you can put within your dashboard to give you that sort of reporting capability. And essentially, there are sort of two type of data widgets that are available in there as well. There's the data widgets themselves. These are the widgets that will allow you to display the type of information you'll find within the Nebu managed frames. So the core results, the number of completes, the quota sales, looking at your sort of CATI information on there as well. So the productivity reports, any of the appointments you have brought up, and then some sort of additional functionality. We've included a pivot table in here as an element, rather than sort of the cross-table generation you get within managed frames. This takes it a step further to do sort of hierarchical tiered pivot tables in there, so you can produce more in-depth analysis on those. You'll also see we've got the sort of the counts there and the whole counts. And again, with these, you can actually sort of customize them and select certain elements within there. So we can look at how we can sort of choose those different elements, what we can change within those, and what we choose to display to the viewers of the dashboard. In addition, we also have some sort of external sources, external widgets there, so you can pull in some extra information. So, for example, embedding YouTube videos, adding a clock or calendar to the screen there, and the sort of including within the widget an external URL, so you can embed other websites, external links, perhaps to sort of PDF files or something you have hosted. So you can then generate almost an entire report within the dashboard. And obviously having a HTML specific area there, you can then write your own code. Maybe you're sort of putting in text information there and you want to have sort of bold and headers and have that sort of look as though it's wrapping around different widgets, and creating as a very interactive report on your sort of URL link, using your dashboard in that fashion. So the flexibility from having the different widgets there means you can really stylize the content than the look and feel of your dashboard, to provide better insight to your customer, your client, and making it look and feel as if it's one of their particular pages. It's specific, bespoke to them. So what sort of customization can we do on the widgets? We had a quick look at some of the widgets, and I will run through those shortly and go through various different elements of those widgets and give sort of examples of what can be customized, what can be shown. But generally, depending on the type of widgets, you'll always be able to sort of change the background color, the images there. So you can also have a sort of an image as the background of a widget and select that, and change the sort of viewing of it, change the styling of that individual widget. You can select, again, depending on data type, whether it's displayed as a chart or a table. I mean, obviously certain data doesn't lend itself to being in a sort of table format, but where that is available, the option is there, and you can just check the box to do that. Importantly is being able to select which questions to display. So when you're looking at the sort of information on perhaps the whole count or the counts, sort of the information that you usually find in your analysis screen, the top line information there, you'll be able to select which questions are actually shown within the widget there. So what information is displayed, and selected on different levels as well, whether you're including the totals, the percentages, whether you're including the label or just the description of the choices. So there's a lot of customizable elements within each widget, and also looking at obviously the date ranges. So what information needs to be displayed in which field date, and there are areas where you can make that relative, so it's shown within the last X amount of time. So there's a lot of sort of customization control over the different elements that are within your dashboard. So what we're going to have a look at now is how we run that customization, and we're going to spend quite some time here going through some of the different elements that you have, how you can sort of look at changing different projects and getting the most out of those. We're just going to click through. And So when we've got our sort of our different demos here as well, I'm going to sort of view this particular demo we have at the moment. So what we've got is, as we can see, the different elements at the top. You'll notice that also when you sort of log in and you are using a sort of logged in account rather than a viewer, you have the ability to then sort of unlock the dashboard and start altering some of the information here. So here we've looked at, embedding a different YouTube video on here as well. So I can quite quickly customize the different elements here. And we can see that, by using that, we then look at the dashboard itself, and we are able to go into the dashboard and sort of alter some of the elements that we've got within the information there as well. So being able to sort of change these elements, I can then choose perhaps a different YouTube video on here as well. So if I simply, alter the URL on there, I can sort of have it to autoplay, or I can show the controls. I can decide that I'm going to start this at, a certain amount of seconds within, allow the full screen so someone can click on it, view it in full screen, and show different information there. And once that's done, then, it will pop up, and we've got now a different sort of market research project in there as well, a different sort of YouTube video that's embedded. And I can obviously play that, have that sort of autoplay in the background there. So you can give a more sort of custom look and feel to the elements that are there. If we're looking at the number completes, you'll see we've got sort of the two widgets here. This one is obviously demonstrating it as a table, and this is a sort of in a chart format. And again, when we're looking at that, table or charts, do I want to sort it by certain elements? I can add in titles, change the background of this individual element if I need to as well, and start looking at the position of it. But if we wanted to look at the sort of the overall, so, when we were creating this initial report, we wanted to load in a report. We wanted to be able to customize that. Now, rather than going through and changing the individual details on there as well, I can look at the element here. So I've got my background on there as well. Again, I can simply change the background to various different elements I want. I can just, add in a different background there as well. And so we've got, different styling on the background. And again, we've made the change. It'll sort of reload my information for me. On there as well, if I want to sort of have different grids. So obviously you want to present the information there. To make it more user-friendly for different devices, we suggest using the container. If I make this full and I want to have, 10 columns instead, and put some spacing between them on the different elements there, I can do that. And you'll see that it's adjusted. So then I may have to start, just realigning some of my elements, and I can simply, drag and drop these as I want. So I can change the phone, take up the sort of the screen, change those elements around. So it gives me that flexibility to be able to put different widgets in different places, to customize how I'm presenting my information. And you'll see obviously with a sort of a full screen one, if I'm sort of altering some of the sizes there, it may not sort of truly reflect how I want the layout. It's obviously adjusting it for the different sort of containers and the elements. So what we're sort of looking at then is obviously, I'm going to have it as a container there. I'll sort of just reset it back to how it was on there as well. So we've now, obviously I've moved things around, so they're in different areas and styles, but you can see that we can play around with the styling in there. Now, for the widgets as well, as I said, it could be a standard report you've got and you want to then update it for a different client. So we can change the titles, we can change the background, but perhaps each individual widget needs to have different sort of colors and styles and look and feel on there. Well, we can set this for all of the widgets at one time. So I can give them sort of, a sort of padding around there. I'm going to obviously make this a dramatic change so we can see how I can sort of add on all of these extra elements and change those completely. Put a bit of transparency here, so you can just how transparent that's going to be for the writing behind it on the background, and the different color elements, style those as well. So then if I reset all of the custom styles, so all of the styles that are already in the widgets are now going to take on, when we say okay, all of the elements we've put in here. So then each one is restyled. We see a different sort of header font format. We've got the different color background that we've set up, and you'll see that's been sort of added to every single one of the widgets there as well. So it gives me that capability to update into all of the widgets at one point. Obviously, if I wanted to have sort of individual widgets elements on there as well in a slightly different style, I can look at changing the background here as well, and sort of having different elements on individual ones as well, removing the title bar and just showing different, sort of customizing different elements as I want to on there. So the great thing about it obviously is that you can then mess around with as many different sort of widgets as you want. You can restyle them, position them in different areas. But you can also start showing different information on there as well. So looking at the the individual widgets that come up, we can look at sort of altering some of them, adding in different elements. So if I add in a complete widget on here as well, it sort of adds it in the first available space, and now it gives me the information that I can start looking at. So I can change my date range on here as well, what information I'm going to display from which particular time period. Is it going to be a table or chart? Am I going to do it in sort of weeks, days, months on there? I've got the ability to customize my title, whether to display it or not. So I don't have to have the title, but if I do say put that title on, I can then customize those elements. And again, I can customize the background on there in individual ones. So it will always sort of pull in on there. I can resize it, reposition it, change it around. So I've got all my different elements data in there as well, and it'll move items around as I'm adjusting them in the dashboard. So I can sort of simply play around with things and see how they're going. On the different widgets, as we said, different widgets have different information available, different customization for them. So if I'm looking at adding in some of these sort of the quota cells on there as well, I can choose my quota cells, add those in, and we can say, are we using the sample or the questions or both? I've got my sort capability, my table and bars, and you'll see I've got the different elements that I can then display in these quotas. So I can look at how I'm going to sort of adjust my quotas, what information I'm going to give on dashboard. Just about the ability to be able to display just restricted information. So if I'm looking at some of my verbatim on there as well, I can then look at which questions. I've chosen a project with not many verbatim in there, but we've got the questions that we can choose which ones to show, and I can select all of them or unselect them, choose which ones I want. We can show whether we're displaying certain options on there, but I can also limit it perhaps to the sort of top 50 or 15 or top 5, whatever I want on there, and perhaps only the complete. So I've got different filtering options to be able to restrict the amount of information. Perhaps I only want the latest information to be displayed. So I'm getting a continuous update, a continuous feed on those verbatims that are being generated within my survey. So again, it really just sort of depends on how you want to display that information, who your target audience is, how you want to engage them in the process of your dashboard. If we are looking at the sort of some of the counts, some of the question types, what we're doing then is looking at adding on a widget to be able to do that. So we're looking at perhaps a sort of choosing which questions I'm going to display in my counts area there as well. So as I look at this, I get the all of the questions that I want in my complete survey. I've got all of the different questions available to me, and as you'll see, we've got the options whether we're going to display those questions, the descriptions, the answers on there, whether we've got those statistics, so the mean, the mode, the averages, those elements you see in managed frames on there. But obviously you can choose which questions to show. So I can choose just certain questions within my survey, choose certain elements on there as well, and perhaps only display those questions. It means that I can hide certain questions. I don't have to display everything that I've collected. I can exclude any of the empty ones, and obviously looking at my whole count will give me that information on which questions have certain ones skipped or not. So I can sort of choose the information there, whether I want to display it or not, and whether, again, I'm only going to show complete information, or the sort of, as you have that option in managed frames to flick between completes and all results that have come in, you have that in here. But once it's presented to the viewer of the dashboard, they no longer have that control. They can't switch things there. So you decide and define what is being displayed to your viewer of your dashboard, what information is going out to them. And that's sort of obviously important to make sure that you're presenting the information that's necessary to them, the information that will give the best insight to the viewer of this particular dashboard on there. So if I just sort of look at some of the different elements we've got in here as well, I'll look back at the actual main dashboard display. What we can see is obviously we can have different titles in them, or we can look at the different information that's coming up, and I can generate sort of different reports, just play around with them, seeing how they are. So if I'm sort of viewing different elements, different reports here, you can see we've got different information coming out. If I want to just, again, simply update the data source and populate that there, obviously it gives us the be careful, any changes may not be in the widget as well. So then we can find out, perhaps we've got information in certain areas, and we get more information coming up. It will update that, get that live data going out. So it gives me just the capability and the flexibility to change all the information there you want. Perhaps I want to make it look more like a different client logo in there. We also sort of warn on the SSL, the dashboard itself is a HTTPS connection on there. It means that it's a secure one there. So if you are embedding images, videos, HTML, or URL pages that aren't in that HTTPS format, you will get a warning there. It will say to you that, this element there, because obviously different browsers will pick up if you have different cross elements with different security levels on them. And you'll see we've got a sort of a preview of the logo here. If I wanted to, perhaps change that, all I have to do again is just, copy paste in a URL I've picked up. So this is just the plain sort of Nebu logo on there as well. I can, put it as the initial size it's going to be, and just say, well, top left, and perhaps I'm going to repeat this within the bar I've got there. So you can see, obviously we've changed that around. We've done different styling elements on there. So it gives you the ability to sort of play around with that dashboard. And then once you've locked it down, you can then just sort of display it to others, share that particular link. So that's sort of, as we said, an overview of the reporting tool on there. Let's just sort of refresh ourselves as to what we've seen today, what we've been looking at, and go back over some of the elements there as well. So what we've seen is the Nebu Reporter, it's easy to use. It's fairly intuitive when you're clicking through the widgets, clicking through the options on there. It's very quick to deploy. You can, also, as some of you may have noticed on the widgets on the dashboard, you have a clone option on there as well. So you can sort of, recreate exactly those widgets, clone them, exactly that report, clone it, and then alter it, go in and do the customization from there as well. It's very customizable. It's very flexible in the information you can give and provide within that report. It's fairly intuitive to use on there. So even your customization, generating URLs from images, finding different sources on the web. Now, it's very easy to sort of look up an image from a client and just grab that URL, plug it into the dashboard, and you've customized it to their look and feel pretty quickly, pretty instantaneously. And obviously all the information there is dynamic. It's loading continuously. It's feeding that information to you without having to do any processing of the data. And of course, you've got the additional controls there to limit the information you're showing, limit the questions that are being displayed to your respondent, and generally being able to sort of make a dashboard that is useful, informative, and looks sort of nice, easy on the eye to the viewer. Now, obviously, one of the main questions is, how do we get hold of the Nebu Reporter? Well, what we'll be doing is, obviously, those that have sort of viewed here will be generating a follow-up email, so you can register your interest for it, and we'll be sort of managing the rollout of this. Obviously, it involves upgrades to your current system and additional on the sort of registration there as well. What we intend to do from Nebu is to provide access for all of our clients to be able to play around with this, and then looking at discussing how many sort of dashboards you want, how you want to customize this, what the sort of the agreements are on the usage of it. So again, look out for your emails, look out for the follow-up that'll come in there. And what we'll do now is just sort of invite any sort of questions that may have come up whilst you're looking at the video today, and look at any sort of possible information there. Anyone has anything that's risen. So yep. Okay. Does it have? Yeah, at the moment, yeah, the video embedding with all those customization elements there, yes, it does need to be a YouTube video on there as well. A lot of this is because sort of YouTube has those inbuilt controls and elements that you can actually share. It's built for video sharing. It is possible to use the HTML widget on there and embed obviously sort of video using HTML coding in there, but it's often easier for the non-technical, shall we say, to be able to choose the elements within the YouTube video to autoplay, to have that loop, to have the options on there and start different areas within the video itself. So we've chosen that one. I mean, obviously, we can look at expanding that in future to add on different providers, but generally, a lot of companies and organizations have a YouTube channel, so it's quite easy to sort of grab information from there and design it so it's specifically customizable to your end client, your end viewer. Restricting the data on, certainly, yeah. So obviously, as you saw, when you're choosing certain questions, you can choose which questions to hide or display there. Obviously, when we're looking at the overall results on there as well, at this moment, you get all the results come up. It gives you a sort of account of what's there. So, hiding certain result codes isn't possible. I mean, it might be something we look to in the future. Obviously, this is the first iteration of Nebu Reporter, and with all of our programs, we invite customers to feedback, to give us that intuitive elements, to give us the development ideas to take the product further and forwards, as we do with all of them. So it's a first iteration. Yes, there are sort of improvements we also want to make ourselves, but we're aware of having to have the ability to restrict the questions that are displayed to hide those that may be sensitive. Maybe you've included additional questions in there that are for your internal usage, which you don't want your sort of client or research exec to see. So having that ability to choose the questions is important to us and to you. So yeah, that has been imported into there. How many dashboards can you have? Yeah, I mean, as you saw on there, we had several different dashboards already registered to us. That we are looking at setting that so that you can actually restrict, how many concurrent dashboards are available for viewing, having a limit on there, and that will be licensed on a sort of a different limit on the different dashboards that you want. So that's something discuss with your sort of Nebu contact, your sort of account manager, and someone will sort of discuss on the pricing levels there as well, and what flexibility you have and how many dashboards you can run and how concurrent they can be. Obviously, we've built in the ability to export that configuration to make sure that you can quickly re-establish dashboards if you don't need them, but you've still got every element there is almost archived, backed up for you, so you can quickly refer them. It also means you can store those in those configuration files as perhaps potential reports. So a plain non-styled report configuration, having the elements in there, perhaps elements for web surveys, elements for CATI surveys, and then blank boxes in there for some of the logos and the images that you want to display. So you can standardize the structure of your report and the elements within the report, load those up quickly as a configuration file, and then make that stylized changing that you need. So you can do the stylization, select the elements you want, and make that change for different clients. Or perhaps you want to have a client sort of look and feel that's saved as a configuration, so you can always display it to them. And all you're doing then is loading it up and choosing the data set that you're going to report to them. So there's different ways of approaching that import export, the control of how many reports you want and how you use those elements. Okay, well, I think that's all the sort of questions that I've seen so far. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for their attention. The copies of the sort of webinar will be available on our YouTube channel, as with all previous webinars. And again, we'll obviously go into sort of much more detail in future webinars and dive deeper into the different widgets, the different elements there, and show you more about what you can do on the flexibility of the dashboarding. But for now, I'd like to thank everyone that's joined us and look forward to the next webinar and you joining me then. Thank you.